We are back, pods. Week
We're back.
three, episode three, not week three, episode three of Throw It in the Dirt. I'm your co-host Brandon Hutsmith with my pods, Wade Broyles. Big week for the pods too. We got into the member
Huge.
guests.
Gosh.
Get
First
to
of
get-
all, I'd like to thank all of our fans for really making this happen. It was touch and go there for a second, but we are back.
We are so back right now. It's exciting. We got a lot to go through. Obviously, road weekend didn't go as planned or as we hoped for the Rebs. So we'll obviously get into that. Ole Miss played tonight. Game was over a little bit earlier against Arkansas Little Rock. So we'll briefly talk through that one. Not a lot there. Obviously, we did what we were supposed to do. And then we'll look ahead to Vanderbilt. Super staff coming in. Obviously a top 5 team in the country coming into Oxford. So, and then the elephant in the room for sure, the Gunnar Hogland news. So we will go through all of that. But before we do, we say thanks to our partners, Genteel. Throw It in the Dirt brought to you in part by Genteel, genteelapparel.com. Check out their collegiate collection. I'm wearing Genteel as always. Really good clients of mine and good friends, and they do a great job there. So check them out at genteelapparel.com. They have the powder blue with the which has become one of their more popular styles. And we do have a big time guest tonight. So we're going to go through kind of our recap pretty quick because we want to get to him. We'll get there. I don't want to give away too much early, but certainly a fixture in Ole Miss baseball and just a super person. So jumping in, going the road to Texas A&M, lose 2 out of 3 Friday night. We can kind of go through that a little bit. Hogland comes out after an inning. Was not the Gunnar Hogland that we're used to seeing. You could certainly tell something was up, and that was, obviously concerning there. I think Diamond came in and did a good job filling in there, and the bats got going. We scored some runs, and so back and forth game a little bit until the end there, and then as Will Frizzell did all weekend, Will Frizzell hits the big, walk-off home run there in the 9th. So just your take, kind of give me your view of it there, Pods, and what you saw and maybe observations from that.
Yeah, I find it interesting that there was soreness pre-game and he's still in the game, and it's still, regardless of win, lose, or draw records, where you are in the standings, the kids come first, and it's super. I found it very interesting that there was soreness pregame, and I'll leave it at that. Diamond was warming up in the first inning. In fact, I think it was pre-pitch, right? And so as a baseball fan, that's concerning. That, and I'm gonna leave it at that. I do think I think Diamond did okay. Hud, I'm like you, man. You said it last week. I'm ready to give Doherty his chance, and I think I give the ball to him in that situation. It's early. I see the glass half full, and looking at it as, a must win. Get it to Doug. You're going to feel confident there. We're not giving the kid as much of a chance as I would like. I thought he was pitching okay game 3. Then obviously we go, we jump right in and go straight to Broadway for 9. I'm not a huge fan. I had a closer role for a long time, and I know we're going to come back to game 2, but since we're going down game 3 route, man, it's hard enough for a closer to get 3 outs, and now you want me to get 9. We talked about this, HUD, show 1. I'm in for 3. I'm blowing doors for 3, and that's my mindset. And you and I were texting during the game, and the question was, I'm not so sure about this call. Guys, look, it's easy for us to say this now, right? But for us to make a run in the postseason, HUD, we got to let the Dohertys figure it out and get out of a jam. Right? We can't just always ipso facto hand it to the closer. And so I want to talk about Saturday. What's your thoughts on Doug? HUD, we're 4 weeks in of really good freaking appearances in a row from Doug. Like, the guy's showing up, man.
So before we go there, really quick, just to close out the Friday night piece, I thought Austin Miller came in and no earned runs and looked more like Austin Miller is supposed to look, and I think that was a positive from that. That's kind of what we try to do here, is we try to sift through all of the clutter of Twitter and that, and try to give you some other information that's in there, that's mixed in with everything that's happening. Derek Diamond, again, he's right there. He's a kid that has the talent. It's just making the big pitch, and he struggles to get out of innings. But then Doherty and Bianco, we'll talk about it a little bit more about his interview on Head to Head this week, Super Talk Mississippi this week. He said, Will Frizzell hit out all different kinds of pitches. The pitch from Doherty was a slider that was inside that didn't have a lot of break to it. So it's just really a flat, spinner that he crushed, obviously. And again, we talked about this. Put your guys in positions to have success. You bring Doherty in there to pitch to maybe the best hitter in the Southeastern Conference, or one of the top couple hitters in the Southeastern Conference. And that's, I think that's okay. It is what it is. It's a tie game, and like you said, you want to give your guys a chance. But at the same time, it's a tough situation to be in. He hits a home run to lose the game, or his home run to win the game. Rebs lose. Other bright spots, again, and I'll talk about them at length for tonight's game. But Jacob Gonzalez continues to swing just an unbelievably hot bat, and that is great to see. In my first show, I was critical. I said, this guy's got to be more consistent. Now here we are 3 shows later, and the kid has just been on fire in the leadoff spot. Had 4 hits tonight, had 2 hits, in the Friday night game there. And then the other one that stands out to me, and, again, when you talk about being critical of some of the moves, Hayden Leatherwood, 3 for 5 on Friday, and has been our best hitter since SEC play started. And that's proven in the stats. I mean, it is what it is. It's there. And then Saturday, to your question, and the long-winded version of that question is, Doug just continues to impress, and did not have, I didn't think, and I think you would agree, did not have his best stuff on early in the game, and he just fought through it. And that's what he is. He's just a guy that fights and gets to the next pitch, the next batter, the next inning, and the next outing, and that's what he did. And it was impressive, honestly. Game 2 was an impressive start by Doug to get us, that momentum that we needed.
I will say too, something that I was impressed with that kind of flew, a guy that's flying under the radar right now, but he is absolutely barreling up balls, and it's the Shanye kid. You talk about being close. He hit some absolute nukes right at people this week, and man, it's fun to see they're swinging at the right time. I think we should wait to further our game 3 comments until our guests get on. I want to pick his brain on a question. about that to see where we're going. I think this is a great segue into an outlook into this upcoming weekend. I think they can throw the ball okay, B-Hud. They may have a pitcher or two at Vandy that, holy crap. You're getting ready to face, back-to-back first-round picks in Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter. They have a combined ERA of 4, right? Both throwing at a 2. Strikeouts to walks are insane. They're guys that have over 100 Ks, and Leiter's leading the walk charge between the two of them with 29. So a 5-to-1 ratio. We talk about that. HUD, you got to figure out a way to scratch one and hope at Friday or Saturday, and then hope, I think best case scenario, hope for a Sunday when they do their pitch by committee. It seems to be what they kind of hang on. If it's not the Schultz kid, you got to figure out a way to win Sunday as well, and hopefully get out of the weekend winning 2 games. That's lawfully expectations, but I think we have a club that's swinging it well enough now to do that. Jumping into Vandy, just a touch really quick, that I think we want to try and put it into perspective of kind of where they rank up. Obviously, being in the East, they're surprisingly HUD, and we talk about a sneaky good team, but they're a game back from Tennessee right now. So Vandy's actually second place in the East. They're going to swing it just behind Ole Miss. They're hitting 298 as a team, where we're 304 leading the conference. They're number 2. They're going to throw it a full run better than us, and we're going to field it close to the same at 973 and 974. So the tale of the 2 tapes is really on the mound, right? And it's it's a place where you think Doug shows out, and we find a good few guys out of the pen. Thought Austin Miller looked good tonight, HUD. But I want to get your thoughts on the weekend coming up.
So it's a few things while you were talking that some takeaways for me for Vanderbilt, or some look to, Leiter takes a weekend off, doesn't pitch last weekend, so there's a not necessarily chink in the armor or whatever, but it does make you say maybe there's some arm fatigue there. Maybe that's a gettable game now. And so I think that is one thing that you look to. Now, Vandy is a small ball team. They have some boppers, a couple guys. They have some RBI guys. They have Carter Young, who has 13 home runs. He's the only one on the team with double-digit home runs. Everyone else, the next closest is 9 home runs. And Dominic Keegan, who's hitting over 350. So they can hit, and they get runners on, and they're going to put pressure on you. Very much like a Dan McDonald Louisville team. They're going to do the small things, small ball. They're going to move runners. They're going to steal. They're going to hit and run. They're a team that is going to be aggressive and going to try to generate enough runs so that their arms, to take a term, can go out and blow doors. Because they are the Commodores. There you go, dad joke for everybody. But I'll say this, I think for us on our side, if you're looking inward, I think the thing that you have to look to is, do we go Diamond, Nikhazy, McDaniel, or do we move Nikhazy back to Friday night and try to go, ace to ace? It'll be interesting to see. That's one of the things that I'm kind of excited to look at is, what do we do there from that perspective? Do we try to match up ace to ace, or do we go, more with a, just kind of a righty approach? And then, the other thing about Vanderbilt is, they're a team that knows how to win. And so, that you gotta, and this is a cliche or whatever obvious answer, but you gotta fight to the very last out, because they're a team that is going to continuously put pressure on you. So we have to field it well, whether it be bunt, whatever, make the routine plays, because if we don't, they will run you out of the stadium, and they know how to do that. They're good at that. But I do think, again, like I said, I think if Casey goes on Saturday, I think we have an opportunity potentially with Leiter. I think he's the more gettable of the two guys. Now, 2 months ago, I would have said the exact opposite. I would have said, Rocker maybe is the most gettable of the two. And then, like you said, Sunday could potentially be a pitch by committee. They will run a guy out that will throw mid to upper 90s. And you will say, I've never heard of this guy. And he will be, and in 2 years, he'll be, a lottery pick or whatever you want us to call it. I mean, that's just kind of how they roll there. So yeah, that's kind of my take on Vandy. All those thoughts, obviously, a lot, but that's kind of how I look at it as it goes.
Gotta win, man.
Yeah, but I will say
Gotta
this.
win.
I will say this. So, the elephant in the room, obviously, is the Gunnar Hogland injury. We will get maybe some takes from our guest on that specific topic. But he goes in, has the MRI on his arm. It is a tear, which means Tommy John surgery. Our guest actually had Tommy John surgery, so like I said, we'll get his take on that. But devastating news for a rotation and a staff that did not need that information. That's the staff that doesn't need.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking at it as an optimist, you're hoping that it's JT Ginn 2.0, right? And but if you could find positive in the situation, that's what you're hoping for, where kid bounces back and nothing to it, right? Questionable moves of putting him out there, and we can all do that. But I'm excited. I know we keep talking about our guests. I feel like we jump right in, Hud, and bring the man in. Ex Friday night Reb.
I was gonna say, do you want to give the intro, or do you want me to give some intro?
Yeah. Ex Friday night Reb. New dad as of 5 days old. So we're not given, for those of you who are still wondering, number 39 himself, Will Kline, is going to be on tonight, and we are excited about it.
Awesome. Let's take a break, and then we'll bring him right on. Hey, we are back.
So back.
Will Kline in the house. Welcome to Throw It in the Dirt. The only Ole Miss baseball former Rebs podcast in the market today.
Quite in.
We are so excited to have you on the show, man. Thank you for taking the time. I know, as Wade did the intro, said you have a newborn, so
yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. Tell us about that. How exciting is that to be a new dad?
Dude, it's awesome. 6 days old. We had her Thursday last week, and so we are new parents. We got a lot of friends who've got more than one. This is our first go around, obviously, and we're pumped, but it is can be a challenge at times, to say the least.
Sleep is your newest precious commodity.
Yeah, like midday, there's 30 free minutes, just go close my eyes, stuff like that.
I remember after our first, our parents came over to watch him for just a bit, and I looked at Lauren. I'm like, let's go get a quick nap in. Like, yes, let's do it. Yeah. So awesome. Well, Ruthie for
Ruth, little baby Ruth.
Beautiful baby.
She is. We're really lucky.
As you wouldn't be surprised to seeing this luscious flow of locks from Mr. Kline himself. So
I mean, the hair is thinning, my friend.
you're
What a-
looking good, buddy.
You guys are ahead of me, but I'm on the way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, check out this haircut if you think it's thinning. Dude, the beautiful name, almost as beautiful as that Smithsonian wallpaper you got going in the background there. That's
So
that is beautiful.
the HUD, we live in an old house. The wallpaper, I'm not so sure if it's original or not, but we thought it had some character.
It does have that.
So-
I love it. I'm just kidding.
So we left it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's real interesting. It's almost got fur on it.
It's probably integral to the house. If you take it down, like all of a sudden the house starts
And
crumbling.
I'm like completely convinced that somebody bought it at Lowe's. There's nothing unique about it.
Awesome. Look, so we saved a couple topics because we wanted to kind of get, just obviously you're around a little bit. So we'll get into kind of the where are they now segment of this. But before we get to that, you keep up with the Rebs. You're back in Tupelo, back at home. And so Wade and I, when we were talking about, having you on as a guest, we're sitting here saying, like Will is a Friday night guy. He's a situation, gets it. And so before we talk about Gunnar Hogland, which we want to get your take on as well, the Sunday game where, we have the 7th, 8th, 9th. Let's just fast forward to that kind of that breakdown of it.
Yeah.
At Texas A&M, we have the lead. We pitch to the hottest hitter on their team with the bases loaded.
Yeah.
And he does what hot hitters do. He gets the big grand slam.
Right.
And again, Wade and I are texting the whole time, like what are we doing, whatever. And I think for me, and you can talk through it a little bit too, but for me, it was like I'm looking at it going, the obvious thing was we don't want to get to Frizzell. Like, do whatever you have to do to not have him up with the bases loaded.
Right.
And it just felt like we didn't really go after those first two guys of that inning. And we just kind of, anyway, that was kind of my take for that, for the bottom of the 7th right there.
No, dude, it's a totally honest take. I've talked to Wade some about this, but from our perspective, like, and I don't know if it's still like this, but the second you get on campus, there's a pitching philosophy ingrained in you. And no matter where you come from, like Bianco's philosophy is put in your head. And it's kind of the mentality you take to the mound. And it also takes away your ability to think some, which is nice in some situations because you just rely on what you've learned. You don't have to think. Right. You learned how to handle a certain situation because Bianco taught you how to do it. And there's a system, there's a pitching philosophy that he teaches his pitchers to avoid a situation like that happened Sunday afternoon. We always talk about like the big hairy 3-hole guy that can beat you. And like the system is with a guy like that coming up, who's obviously hot. I mean, the guy's already got sitting on 4 home runs, hit one earlier in the day, bases loaded. And I'm not going to call it a must-win situation, but that was a must-win series for Ole Miss. There was a lot on the line for who I believe is probably our best arm out of the pen, Broadway, to be grooving heaters. I mean, the one the kid hit out wasn't the knob of the bat, but like, dude, you shouldn't have anything over the plate. I mean, I know bases are loaded, but like, you could have avoided that a batter or two prior. But I mean, I'm sitting there watching it thinking, the mistake wasn't made. It's like golf. Like, don't be mad because I hit a bad bunker shot. Like, the mistake was made hitting it into the bunker. Like, the mistake was made before the guy even got up, right?
Yeah.
Some things you can't avoid, but that seemed like we could have avoided it, at least as painful as it was. I mean, that sucked.
Right. Well, and you talked about it and you alluded to it about, what we're taught. And it really played out very puzzling if you think back to it.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the 2 hitters in front, but I know the kid that used to play at Ole Miss, was it Baum or Brom?
Blom.
Blom.
Yeah.
He was one of those hitters. And then another guy. And I don't think either one of them were wildly successful on the weekend. And to kind of inside baseball for everybody, what Will's talking about is we're taught that, we essentially have 3 pitch patterns, if you will.
Right.
There's a pattern that you start the game in, and we're going to attack and mix, right? And if you miss over, and we're going to go after guys. There's a pattern that when you're up by a lot, or when you're not afraid of guys, that you pitch in. And if you miss, you're going to definitely miss on the plate, and you're going to attack. And then there's the pattern where it's the guys that can beat you. And, I remember in our day, it was, the Pedro Alvarez's of the world.
Yeah, Matt
Laporta, like these big names that it's okay if you walk them. Now, look, everybody, I've seen the Twitters of the world. Oh, you got to walk the guy and just walk a run in. Get out of here. Like,
No.
We're not going to walk a run in. Okay. I get it. We can be extremely selective at how we attack this guy, though. And to your point, Will, we're nibbling and sliding and mini waving off on guys before the guy. And then we just decide that we're going to try and blow doors by a guy that just, it's not going to work. Right. So super baffling, weird turn of events from the system for sure.
Yeah. But one more point, but like to kind of echo what you're saying, but even still, like we had our best guy out there. That was our best arm out of the pen against their best guy. I mean, yeah, like the competitive side of a player says, okay, my best stuff versus him, I'm going to win. So yeah, like I get the idea of attacking, but like there was so much on the line. It just seemed like when he came up, I think it was 3 pitch. No, it was did he hit the first pitch out?
It was
No,
a third pitch.
He hit him 0-2. Hit him 0-2.
He had him 0-2. Tries to throw a 5 ball, which is
right.
another part of the system. It's knob of the bat high. A fastball that you're trying, the one that looks like you blow it by. Bianco calls that pitch. It's knob of the bat high, right down the heart, over the white, but knob of the bat high. That dude got on top of it. I mean, hits to the railroad track. I mean, it was impressive, but we should never have been in that situation.
Yeah. And that's, when I go back to it, that's what I let off with is just how I view it as you're more of your typical. I'm not necessarily an average fan because I am avid. I mean, I follow it, religiously, but I think and I said this to multiple people, and it doesn't matter after, right after the game, everybody's mad. Everybody's mad at everybody, Bianco and, whoever. But the thing that I said was, think about the opposite of that. He swings and misses at that pitch. Now all of a sudden everybody goes, wow, we went after him, we got him, we got their best guy. And
mano a mano.
Right. Think about their dugout. Like the series is over. He strikes him out right there. That's ball game. Even though it was bottom of the 7th, that's ball game, right? So that's kind of where I went with some people. And I said, but think about it from this perspective. Now I do, there's a part of me that knows Bianco and knows that he's that guy. He's that, let's go punch him in the mouth. And I do think Frizzell, with his antics earlier in the game. Yeah,
that just was fuel with the fire.
Right. Maybe got into B's head a little bit. And I'm not saying that he did, but I'm certainly saying that
it clearly did.
Right.
He was
Bianco's out of the dugout.
Out later, right?
He was out of the dugout because of one player on the opposing team challenging him.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, there probably was a lot more emotional that went into that, more than the system that he put into place that is supposed to, shelter.
Take the emotion out of it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then you fast forward to the, top of the 8th, we get the first 2 runners on again.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Jacob Gonzalez, who's, just in Fuego right now.
Right.
He gets on, and then, he wasn't on. Leatherwood, who's in Fuego right now. It's coming up with 2 runners on. He's the guy that you want in that scenario,
right? Because
and again, this is something that Bianco said on interviews Monday. We're not a bunting team. We're not. Like, he admitted it. That's not what we do, and he's right. We've sack bunted like twice on the entire season, and so he's we bring in our best bunter, who's Ben Van Cleve, and a lot of people were like, oh, this is so stupid. Why are you bringing in Ben Van Cleve? But you bring in your best bunter if you're going to pitch hit, and
he gets the bunt down.
Right, you got it was perfect bunt.
He did his job
and almost beat it out. At a guy, 2.
And at that point, I was highly optimistic. I was like, dude, let's go.
Right, exactly.
Oh.
And then I think where the head scratcher is you have the talk of college baseball coming to the plate, with Tim Elko, and they immediately walk him to set up a force, which is like what I think any baseball coach sitting in the opposing dugout does.
Yeah.
And Bianco said on Monday, and I was surprised by this, but he said he did not think they would walk Elko. And you guys are more baseball guys than me, certainly sitting in dugouts. That one was a head scratcher to me. That was the one where.
What was the score at the time? Do we remember?
They were up 6-5
with a free base in front
Yeah.
of him. Runner on second, third, one out.
Yeah.
I'm walking him. He's my pattern 3.
Yeah. I mean,
right? He's the guy that can beat me with one swing.
That's
I'm
right.
gonna walk him.
And that's why Bianco sent him out of the dugout with a limp, like Kirk Gibson.
That's right.
I mean, yeah, he's the pattern 3 guy. He's the guy you walk. Now all you do is point, send him to first base.
Right. Yeah.
Let me ask you guys. B-Hud, we didn't talk about this, but I think it needs to be brought up. Do we start Elko and we just let him hack and just, hey, dude, send it, man, drop bombs and just see what happens? Is that, I mean,
yeah, we talked some friends in another group text separate of you, Wade. I'm sorry to cheat on you like that.
How dare you?
I know, right? What a guy. So we talked about that. Like, do you bat him like in a position where you can almost restart the lineup? Like, do you bat him in like a 7 hole, and then you have then you can bat whoever behind him that won't run over him if he does get a hit, has to jog the bases station to station or whatever, because he's not sliding, he's not scoring from second, like realistically. But I'm kind of the mindset, like if you're only using him for pinch hitting situations, like go have the
do
surgery.
You really care?
Yeah, go have the surgery.
Yeah. Well, I look at it from the other side. Like I feel like we're struggling to find that 8/9 hitter, and a bad need Tim Elko versus maybe a Calvin Harris. I'm in, and it's not a knock on Calvin, but I would much rather let Elko just, hey, go up there, act like it's BP, freaking just tops drop, man. Let's let him eat and see what happens.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think that's we'll see. And I think we're still, there's still some games to be played, and you may see that this weekend. But so the thing that overshadowed that, and people were as mad as they could be about, the loss on Sunday, but then you get the news, yesterday morning of Gunnar Hogland, who, has just had an unbelievable year, a terrific year. And there's just not to be Debbie Downer, but top 20, top 10 potentially arm. Now all of a sudden, Tommy John, you're looking at it. So I really want to get, terrible for him, but I really want to get Will's take on, because you had surgery, you had that, you get drafted and you have to do everything, the rehab and all that. So I mean, just walk us through that, but at the same time, like even from a mental standpoint, like what is your where do you go once you find that information out?
So my story was, I was nowhere near the caliber player that Gunnar Hogland is now. At the time, I was just a 17-year-old high school kid from Tupelo, had an elbow injury. Because of proximity to Birmingham, go see Andrews, had a UCL tear, had elbow reconstruction. And he just flat out tells you, dude, it's going to be 12 months before you can pitch again. That's if you have a reconstruction. I don't remember there being another option for me. And this is something kind of fast forwarding. Then I'll go back and touch a little bit on kind of life after Tommy John. But the work that I do now, I get to work with sports medicine surgeons. And so every now and again, I get to pick their brain. So before coming on today, I talked to a guy about Gunnar Hogland and his situation. And he said that when the UCL, the elbow tears, it tears in one of two ways. It either tears off the bone or it tears mid-substance, meaning just kind of in the middle. A mid-substance tear, you're a candidate for the reconstruction. So that's using a graft, coming in there, doing your thing. That's 12 months, bottom line. I mean, even the best guys come back 10, 11 months. I mean, you're looking at a year. Best case scenario for Gunnar is that it ripped off the bone, and whether it's 100% or less, but tears off the bone and the native ligament's still pretty good, he can be a candidate for a repair. And I saw some guys who post-op send some guys back to pitching in 6 months. Now that doesn't really do Ole Miss Nation any good, but for Gunner's future, which we're all kind of root for, we don't ever want anyone to come through the program, get hurt, and it derail their career.
Right.
Because everybody's dream at this point, as talented as Division I baseball players are, I mean, they have professional baseball in mind. I hate it for him. I know that he and his family are kind of going through a tough spot, but you do come back from Tommy John. I had it as a 17-year-old kid in high school, missed all my senior year of high school football, most of my senior year of high school baseball. And when I came back to pitch, it was really during the back end of rehab where I was only throwing a fastball and a changeup. Funny story is, my best pitch once I got fully recovered from rehab was my changeup. It was kind of what set me apart. I mean, I threw an average fastball and a decent slider, but I had a third pitch I could throw for strikes. And the only reason I ever developed that pitch and feel for it is because I got so bored during rehab throwing a four-seam fastball over and over and over. I just learned how to throw a four-seam changeup. So it was like a double-edged sword. I mean, I hated missing the time, but I also developed a third pitch. I grew a year. My mechanics got cleaner. I mean, I gained 4 miles an hour. I mean, I don't think it's because of the elbow surgery, but it's because of the rehab. You're focusing a lot on your mechanics, your delivery, you're doing a lot of strength stuff, but elbow surgery is a lot easier to come back from than shoulder surgery. So, I mean, I'm rooting for Gunner and his family. I don't know the kid at all, but, you know, being someone who's had Tommy John, you know, I know that the future can still be bright for him.
So take us, you know, we've done this with all our guests to this point. And it can be abbreviated because we do want to get to your time playing here, obviously, but 17-year-old kid with Tommy John surgery, walk us through, you know, from high school recruitment to get to campus here. Because I met you were redshirting, doing rehab. So hungry. You were so hungry you could eat a box, which is one of my favorite stories with you.
Like, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, but talk about just, you know, like, what was the process from, you know, the high school recruitment to get you to campus at Ole Miss, and then we can kind of go into some of your stats and stuff.
Yeah. So I grew up in Tupelo, so played all my baseball around Tupelo. I mean, I was just a super local kid. I mean, I played Park League baseball as a kid, played not even really travel ball, but it was like all-star baseball, but through the Park League, then played some summer ball. Then I played American Legion baseball my years in high school, and we were super talented. I mean, it was a team loaded with talent. I mean, guys still playing in the big leagues, but so I was just an average kid from Tupelo and was not signed with Ole Miss my senior year. So I'm coming off Tommy John. I was originally signed to play football and baseball at ICC. So that's where I was going. Dan McDonald, who was at Ole Miss under Bianco and was doing his recruitment, ended up kind of getting on my track after my senior year. I come back from Tommy John. I had a couple good games, and he starts calling me. And after the draft that year, 2002 or 3, Ole Miss lost a recruit to pro ball, Tim Dillard. Tim was drafted, freed up some scholarship money, so something became available. McDonald convinced Bianco to offer that to me, so he offers it to me midsummer. I remember the day I signed or committed, and I had to call ICC's football and baseball coach and tell him, like, hey, bro, I know that school starts in like a couple of weeks, but I ain't coming. And the football guy was cool, but the baseball guy, I mean, we're cool now, but Collier he wasn't all that happy. But I mean, how can you turn down going to Ole Miss? And so another guy, John, who I played with at Tupelo High School, was also committed to Ole Miss, and we were roommates there. And during basically our entire time at school until we weren't, but we had a blast. And you know, I didn't pitch a lot growing on. I was kind of overwhelmed when I got to campus, and I didn't really trust my stuff. I mean, like I said, I was a 90-mile-an-hour guy with a slider and a changeup, and I just didn't trust that I could get people out with that. Right. And so I lacked a little confidence early on, and I kind of caught a big break in a midweek game versus Mississippi State where stuff clicked. I mean, I don't think my stuff didn't change. I don't think, but my confidence definitely did. I don't know what it was, what anybody told me, but I mean, it just clicked, and it all kind of worked out for me one night. And then Bianca worked me into the rotation. I worked my way up to being the Friday guy. So I finished the back end of the season as the Friday guy, and then pitched a whole season as the Friday guy.
And I know Wade wants to talk about that Mississippi State game, but before we get to that, the thing that I think I remember, because we, a guy rehabbing, a guy was redshirting, like we got to spend a lot of time together just
Right.
from, being in the dugout or whatever. I mean,
we know we're not getting in. we got to find stuff to bond.
I'm definitely not getting in. I'm wearing khaki shorts, probably cargo shorts back then, and a polo. So there's no way I'm getting in. But, like you're sitting there going, I'm not either. But I do remember, Kyle Bunn, who was a pitching coach here. I do remember him every time you would do a bullpen or like I would be out there just like trying to soak up knowledge or whatever. I do remember him saying like, you've got to be tougher. You've got to have a bulldog mentality. You've got to go out there and think you're the best and baddest on the mound. And I remember a couple of times right before that Mississippi State game where you came in late in games, and I want to say maybe closed a couple of games.
Yeah, maybe.
And
there's a lot of
just,
fans' memory way better than mine.
Yeah, but you just had this like, and like Drew McGee, who's one of my best friends and a baseball guy, as a manager on that same team.
Yeah.
I remember us talking about it in the stands and saying, like Will has a little bit different swagger. He has a little bit different something like anger or whatever. And you closed out a couple games and just looked, unhittable. And then, we have the Mayor's Trophy game where, you just dealt, and I'll let Wade talk about it a little bit. And then I've got a couple things pulled up here.
It's weird what you remember and the vividness that you remember, like random stuff. Right. And I remember that game very well. I remember we were in gray unis, the big thick ones, the big old, it's like
they're made out of wool.
What are you trying to throw? And you can't
like whoever put the uniforms on the Continental Army, like wool coats that weighed like 40 pounds. Like that was us.
That was us. And we were the gray coats. And I distinctly remember it was the last time we played at Smith Wills.
Yeah.
I remember Garrett White came in after you. We used to call him Donkey, right? And he closed the game. I can't even remember like any other games that year, but you talk about it, and I think to B-Hud's point, it's like you were like that was a different Will. Yeah. We always knew that Will was good, but that was like this is crazy. He's dominant right now. Yeah. And it was fun. You're just in it. And it's just one of those things where, you think back, there's several memories that I can just live back on. And like certain smells that come to you, like, oh man, or whatever. Like I remember that game very vividly.
So that game, seven scoreless innings, no walks. He gave up 5 hits, struck out 9. And Cody Satterwhite pitched the 8th, which I'm sure he was all over the place. That. And then Garrett White closed it out for his 4th.
Yeah, and I remember I threw against Matt Lee.
Yeah, Matt Lee.
And we won 1-0. Cozart hit a bomb.
Yep, first pitch of the 2nd inning. Took him
and Smith Wills was a big part. So that was.
Oh yeah, that was
and the funny thing is,
like playing at Polo Grounds.
Yes, 470 to dead.
Or that old Detroit Tiger Park that has the center field is like 490. It's like a triangle.
Like a tunnel.
The week before we played in Jackson, and I think it was at Trustmark, or what it may have had a different name at the time, the Brave Stadium down there, and against Southern Miss, and like I couldn't get it out. And like at that point I was like rock bottom. I don't know what happened between the Southern Miss game and the Mississippi State game. And it may have been Bunn just like cornering me and being like, you got to trust your stuff and have a bulldog mentality, but something clicked. And I was just tired of being average. And it's crazy because 90 miles an hour is 90 miles an hour, like wherever you're throwing it. And, but I just believed that this 90 was going to get people out, and it started to. And then I started to trust that my slider was going to get people out, and then that I had a feel for a changeup that it was going to be a difference maker. And I remember the night after the state game, like I was on such a high, like it just like the ride back, I just couldn't even like fathom what had just happened. And it's different hearing other people's perspectives on the game, because when you're in it, it's really hard to take it all in. And it isn't until years later when you can look back on a memorable moment like that and like hear Ole Miss fans talk about it and just be like, man, that was awesome. I got to talk a lot of trash to my state friends, and you shoved it, and all this stuff. I mean, and that part's cool, but I had never in my entire time at Ole Miss been on campus like 2.5 years at this point. I talked to a scout or an agent or an advisor at the time. I woke up the next morning, the two different groups calling me. They were blowing up. That's what woke me up. I mean, I'm sure I should have gone to class, but it was not the alarm getting me up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have fast forward, as you said, the rest of that season, you kind of work your way up. By the end of that season, that was 06. By the end of 06,
Wow.
were you weekend starter?
Yeah, by the end of
Saturday,
06,
right? By the end of 06.
No, I don't know. Somebody may have to correct this, but I don't ever remember I threw some relief on the weekends,
Yeah.
Saturday or Sunday. But like when I started, I only remember starting on a Friday night.
Okay. So moving to 07. So 07, the one, and it's one of my favorite college baseball games, probably of all time, to witness in person. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the show, but I had some friends. I'd moved to Memphis and was working in the real world, but wanted to like hang out, right, the worst. Wanted to hang out with buddies. So I decided, okay, well, I'm going to come back to Oxford. Like, we'll just do spring break in Oxford. And we're like, wait, Ole Miss is playing at Vanderbilt at the end of spring break. And so it was like, okay, well, let's go up for that game. So we hop in the car. There's 4 of us, or 5 of us, can't remember. We take off we get a last minute hotel. I mean, we leave Oxford, it's like 90 degrees and like sunny.
Oh yeah.
We get to Nashville, it was like
snow.
It was like 40 degrees and like no sun, and none of us even had socks, bro. Like we all had on like flip-flops and like Kavu shorts and like polo, like whatever, polos, t-shirts. But our plan was to go to the game or whatever. So we get to the game, and as it gets darker, it just gets colder and colder.
Oh my gosh, it's
like,
so cool.
We had one of our buddies, Austin, like I think still has numbness in his toes from that game because he had on sandals. Like the rest of us at least had on tennis shoes, but he had on like sandals. He was freezing. We ended up having to buy like a Vanderbilt blanket to put on us. But enough about me. To the game. It was you, Will Kline, Friday night guy, who at that point had certainly come into your own as one of the guys in the SEC that, was just a really, really good Friday night guy, versus David Price, who, if you're listening to this and don't know who that is, then just turn off whatever, stop watching immediately.
Subscribe first.
Right. Subscribe, like, leave a like. But David Price, who at the time was the best pitcher in college baseball. I mean,
like arguably college baseball history.
Right. I mean, he was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I pulled up the actual article from that game, but it ends up being 3-2. We lose in the 10th. Yeah. But I just remember, tit for tat, you and him just going at each other. I mean, not at each other. You were obviously going against, the hitters, but it was like, Price would come out and strike out 2 and in the inning, and then you come out and strike out 2. Then, then we scratch a run across and they scratch a run across. But I mean, every pitch felt like a regional. Every pitch felt like the last game of the season, and it was just incredible. And we were sitting there watching it, just like taking it all in. Yeah. And I just want to get your take on that game, because again, we ended up losing the game, but it was just special. It was a special game and a special moment to in college baseball.
Yeah, it was. That game stands out to me too, B Hood. Yes, I was comfortable in the Friday night role. That was our opening series that year. It was early April, absolutely freezing. I as a player didn't pack an.
You're not allowed to say it's cold. Remember.
That's excuse me. Or you're not allowed to act like it's cold.
Right.
So I remember as a player, like I didn't have enough stuff, like clothing. So I always wore this undershirt that I would pull up like 3/4, like up my elbow, and it was kind of tight. And I liked the compression. That's all I had. And I had a pullover coat. I can't wear that on the mound. I remember going out every single inning, and I kid you not, standing there like before the first warm-up pitch, asking myself, "Am I even warm?" like I wasn't sure in my head that like I should get after a pitch because I wasn't sure if it was warm or not. It was that cold. But yeah, it was an incredible game, and I think we were up 2-1 late maybe, and I remember Bianco coming to me in the dugout, and I run out there in the ninth, and he's like, if someone gets on, we're pulling you. I'm like, all right, I got this. I'm about to, take down this David Price guy. And I ran out there, first pitch, get an out, like ground ball to second base or something.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, dude, it's over. Second pitch, like a base hit, so I get yanked. Bullpen, I can remember. Biddle may have come in, but they ended up tying it up. So, and then winning it in the 10th. The most impressive thing was that David Price threw the 10th inning as well. So he threw a 10-inning complete game. And I didn't know him at the time, but we both ended up getting drafted by the same team. And the unique part of all that is that night, the Rays, who had the first overall pick, were targeting David Price. He was like the most sure thing ever, was there. Their national cross-checker was there. Saw me throw. I wasn't on their radar, liked me, kind of kept up with me the rest of the year. And they ended up taking me with their second pick in that same draft. And so really cool how it all came full circle. But I remember after the game, I was getting interviewed by some of the Ole Miss media and then the Vanderbilt media and whoever else was there. And Price took the time to jog across the field, interrupt the interview, shake my hand, and just said, "Man, that was the most fun I've ever had pitching." And so that's kind of although we lost, is definitely a highlight.
So we went out that night on Demonbreun, right? So that's like one of the many cool areas of Nashville. And I want to say around about like midnight or so, we meet David Price. He was there having a grand time. Buys us all shots. We're telling him, "Oh, it's the greatest game we've ever seen," and he was talking about you and like what a game, he's like, "You guys are lucky to have seen this." We're like, "This is our spring break." And we're screaming spring break in his face like Logan Power would do on a golf course. And
hang on, I do have a Logan story about this same game. So Big is the scout. Sorry to interrupt. This is hilarious.
Yeah.
This is typical Logan.
My story was over. That's it. He bought a shot. So it was fun.
I'm so sorry. I'm glad you said Logan because I did want to mention this. I thought I'd forgotten something. This is it. B's giving our scouting report before the game, and it's like the same spill every time. He like gives the guy's name, lefty or righty, his fastball velocity, his slider velocity, and does he have a third pitch, and just talks about his stuff. He's like reading off, David Price, top pitching prospect in the country, 8-0 record, 0.08 ERA, leads the country in strikeouts. Like he's like 94, 96, gust of 98, mid 80 slider, can touch 90 with it, and a changeup. And I remember Logan. Logan looks at me and goes, "God, we're gonna lose." And I'm like pitching, like I'm nervous, like that night, like before we even go to the stadium, it's like 4 hours before the game. He's like, we're gonna lose. And he ended up ripping a double off of him.
I was gonna say, I was reading the article. It was like Logan Power hits a double in whatever inning.
Ripped.
I'm like, there you go.
Absolutely ripped.
And the Henry brothers put on a show that night a little bit.
Yeah, I think Zach Miller had a big hit that late at some point.
Yep.
The Henry brothers may not have gotten out.
Dominic De La Osa hit a solo home run.
Gosh.
Yeah, hung a change up.
Yeah,
he was so good.
He was very good. So leading that, I mean, you talked about obviously getting drafted or whatever. So take us through kind of that process till, to the point where you're like, whether it be you or someone else telling you were finished or had to hang them up. So walk us through kind of that, quickly, because we do want to kind
I'm
of get
sorry.
to later in life. No, you're good.
Okay. Yeah. So, and get drafted in 2007.
Right.
I immediately report to Columbus, Georgia, which is the low A at the time, the low A affiliate of the Tampa Bay Rays, where they were the Devil Rays. It was last year's the Devil Rays. So I pitch out the rest of that year in low A ball. Played on a really good team. We ended up winning the whole league that year. So it was a really fun time. I didn't get to throw a ton because they put me on a pitch count, but nonetheless had a great year. After that,
you had surgery.
yeah,
right?
yeah. That's the year after. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So my shoulder started bugging me between my first year in pro ball and my following year. So between the winter of 2007 leading into 2008, I picked up a ball, threw once, and I had to call the Rays and tell them. They put me on a plane, took me to Florida, and had a labral tear. So I tried to rehab it, and that just did not work out. So I ended up having surgery early in spring of 2008. Had my labrum fixed, and that recovery and rehab is just a total nightmare. I mean, I had come off of Tommy John 5 or 6 years prior, and the elbow joints kind of, just does one thing, kind of, bends back and forth. The shoulder, kind of moved 360 degrees. It's a completely different animal. So I didn't have any luck with the shoulder, and I'd lost 8 to 10 miles an hour on my fastball, and I was still pitching with some discomfort. So in 2011, I mean, I rehabbed for 2.5 or 3 years, trying to get back on the field. Wade was a Ray for a little while too, but in 2011, I decided to retire, and that was in probably right around May of 2011. Shoulder still bugging me, so I hang it up. I moved back to Tupelo with my parents, and sitting there with nothing to do, and I have nothing credible to put on a resume whatsoever. And so I fill out a resume and send it to Washington, D.C., to Senator Wicker's office, and to apply for an internship, just because I wanted 3 months to put on a resume. Get the internship, end up staying up there working for him for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Get engaged. Laura and I get married while we're in DC. We lived there for a couple more months, and we moved back to Tupelo 4 or 5 years ago. And so we've been in Tupelo since 2017.
So tell me about DC. And I know Wade wants to talk to you about the Rays thing, so we'll get to that. But
Love it.
But tell me about DC. What is that? I mean, is that, I watched House of Cards. Is that it? Is it the House of Cards?
I mean, no. the titles for all the characters, there's people who are, house leader or majority whip, all that stuff's accurate, but maybe there's behind the scenes stuff that goes on that I just don't know about. I'm sure there is some of that kind of stuff, but to the extent of House of Cards, none of it's accurate.
Right. That's too Hollywood.
Highly entertaining show, don't get me wrong. I watched all of it, but
so what's your best story from DC, being in that kind of world? What's your best story?
That's a great question, because I have one heck of a story. So every summer, the Republicans and the Democrats have a congressional baseball game as a fundraiser. So the Republican Party plays against the Democratic Party in a baseball game at Nats Park.
That's the one where they were practicing and there was gunshots a few years ago.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Sorry. Was that you? Were you the gunman?
Dude.
You got that hood on, bro. You look like
bro. I don't know.
and that beard.
Bro, I don't know the audience. What's wrong with you?
You literally look like a police drawing right now. You have a hoodie on, a beard.
I've been pulled aside in airports. I'm not going to.
Be heads with the feds, Kline. Be careful. Be heads with the feds.
Feds watching. And so somehow the Republican team found out that I'd played some baseball. So they asked me to come out and help them. So I go work with them for 2 or 3 years. One practice was always at 6 o'clock in the morning was when practice started. And this was 20-minute drive from where I lived in DC. We had to go all the way to Arlington or Alexandria one, I can't remember, but to TC Williams High School. So the Remember the Titans High School, we're at their baseball stadium practicing, Republican Party. And so I was helping their pitchers, giving advice, all that kind of stuff. One morning I get asked to actually pitch because the Democrats had a guy named Cedric Richmond out of Louisiana who's an incredible athlete and pitched every year and dominated. The Republicans hadn't won in since he'd been in Congress. This dude could bring it. I'm talking 80 some odd mile an hour fastball, throwing it to guys with glasses.
Yeah.
So I was asked to mimic him in practice at 6 a.m. And so like I'd gotten there a little late, threw a couple warm-up pitches. I've got a bum shoulder and I can't turn down these guys. So I'm like, yeah, sure. Take the mound. Terrible baseball. The mound's crap. 6 o'clock in the morning. Rand Paul steps in.
God.
Rand Paul steps in. The first pitch I threw, let that thing go. And the second that it came out of my hand, heading straight for him. I'm off the mound, like trying. I'm actually trying. It's heading straight for him. And like the advice that their coach had given them was start your swing early. Like the advice you give any kid, like throwing, facing some kid just throwing heat. Start your swing early. So Rand started his swing early. He opens up and like his forearm is just fully exposed and that ball smokes his forearm. He goes down. He's like, son of a bitch, and collapses. His helmet goes off. His bat goes flying. He goes down. Like I'm standing on the mound and my whole world is like caving in.
Oh, career.
Yeah. And I'm like I walk up to him and like help him up off the dirt and put my arm around him and walk down the first base line until he gets to first. Like, dude, are you okay? He's like, oh yeah, I just got, because I thought I hit him in the elbow, like on the bone, like thinking, oh my gosh, this dude will never lift his arm again. But it got him in the meat of the forearm. But fast forward a couple of days later, and I'm like all still domed up, but I'd handwritten him an apology note. And I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. And I dropped it off at his office. He ended up getting it. And I run into him in the hallway in Congress, and he comes up to me and he's like, man, hey, look, man, I'm getting my motion back. He's like, and he shows me the forearm, and there is like a full-blown baseball scene. I was like, oh my gosh, dude. I am so sorry. I was like, but there's one of the many stories, but because it's kind of a baseball show, I thought that'd be funny to
Dude,
hear.
that's golden. So tell me, we've asked this question of a lot of people. Obviously, there's probably a ton of memories for you, but what's and you said, the Vanderbilt game is up there for you, but from a teammate perspective, what's just a memory that sticks out in your head from being a part of those some really really good teams, but what's a teammate memory that sticks out to you with your time at Ole Miss?
I think winning the 2006 SEC tournament. I mean, from a team perspective, like we were peaking. Like, man, it was just such a neat experience being in Birmingham and playing so well. I mean, not only being on the team and like getting to win games, but like for the fans, like it finally gave Ole Miss fans like a chance to say we're the best. So that for sure stood out. I mean, hosting the regionals and the super regionals, like being the first teams to kind of do all that was awesome. I mean, I got to play in 3 super regionals. I mean, I don't know if there's another Ole Miss player that can say that, except maybe Logan, who's played in 6. When you're there from 2000 to 2012, I mean, you just have a lot of opportunities to get some games in.
Yeah.
So
he played in the regional a couple of years back. I don't know if he has.
Yeah, he played on the Omaha team, and he also he played on the Omaha team, and he also played when Mark Holloman was the Friday guy.
He played on 2. He played on 2 Omaha teams, 77 and 14. I'm pretty sure.
He's gonna be so bad.
Logan Power. Oh no, he's gonna give me the.
Yeah, but to answer your question honestly, man, the SEC tournament, winning that thing was amazing.
Well, we talked about Tampa. I would be remiss if everybody on this audience, I'm going to ask you a question in a second, but if everybody that's listening didn't know, when I got to Tampa, I see Will in rehab. Obviously, he's rehabbing, and
all I did.
He said, hey, you're getting out of squad early. He was showing me how to read the chart on where you're supposed to be that day. He's like, you're getting out of squads early. You're done for the day. We're going to the golf course. I'll pick you up right here, 12:10. And in spring ball, your day starts at 6. For me, I didn't have a car because it's my first year. You bus in and you bus back every now and again. Will would say, hey, jump in, I'll take you back. So it says, I'll pick you up. We're going to play golf. And I distinctly remember, like, golf. Like, I didn't even know you played golf. And I think you had just picked it up and just started with, kind of one of the only things you can do as a rehab candidate is just, play golf in your
Get
off.
done early, go to the golf course.
Yeah. And so I remember, HUD, you'll love this, as for everybody that doesn't know, HUD is the HUD to my Desta. We are pods and pods.
Fifth flight, here they come.
In the golf arena, fifth flight. You better watch
That's
your
right.
lips, boys.
What?
No, but we show up at the golf course, and first hole, I think I double, Will birdies. I'm like, awesome start, man. Well, we're going through, and I par, and Will birdies. And going through, I'd probably double again. Will birdies. He's 3 under through 3. And I'm like, hey, dude, like, why are you playing baseball? Like, we need to get you on the tour, and I'll be your caddy. Like, I'll do this. And I'll never forget. So in Tampa, it rains every day. Yeah. And some days just a shower, and some days a full-blown thunderstorm. We have the blackest of black clouds coming to us. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, hey, bro, like, this is my second day in Tampa. I'm like, we probably need to go. And Kline's like, I ain't leaving. I'm 3 under. And so I'll never forget, like, he's sitting here, he's like mid fairway, stripes a drive, mid fairway, lightning striking around him, and he's just got the 7-iron just ready to eat. And I'm scared to death in the golf cart, and Kline is having the round of his life, and we are playing it out. So guys, if Will tells you he wants to play in golf, don't bet any money, because he's really good. I do want to get I want to get into a question randomly, and we're going to put up a photo right here after I say this name, and Behud, I'll send you the photo. I want your best memory of a pitching mentor that you and I both shared in Marty Demerit, aka Dog. Do you have a funny memory, a funny story, something that you remember inside baseball on Dog?
Oh my gosh, this guy was, I can't even describe him when I just say that he was weird and eclectic. Like, he wore his, like, your undergarments in baseball are usually like compression stuff, like they're tight, shirt, underwear, socks, whatever. He wore these like hippie tie-dye like shorts. He was like from the Bay Area in California, but old school baseball guy. So that was one thing that stood out. The face situation is probably with the picture that Wade's looking for. But the other thing, I saw him one time. He works with really young kids, like just get into the organization, like out of high school. And some kid was struggling, and Marty walks up and puts his arm around him. And he had long hair. It was like kind of hanging on his shoulder. And I kid you not, Marty took a bite of it. Like, he took a mouthful of this dude's hair and was like trying to chew it. And the guy was like pulling away. And Marty has a mouthful of his long hair. I don't know if he like got any, but like I've seen him eat dirt, hair. I don't know if I've actually seen him eat real food, but this is the one interesting dude. Wade, you got anything that's good about him?
I remember I called him coach just from being from the South, and nobody warns you not to do that. And so he scalded me, right? And Will alluded to it, like, we have young guys come in all the time. And I started in rookie before going to in Princeton before going to New York, and Dog was the guy in Princeton. And we have this fresh
in West Virginia, mind you.
West Virginia, yeah, nothing there.
Delightful.
Yeah, and this is a great story. So we have this rookie coming in, and if you're not pranking people in baseball, you're not having fun. And so this kid comes in. He's kind of a cocky. He just signed out of high school, cocky. He's got more money than God, and he's beating his chest. And so we told him. We said to him, okay, look, there's this guy. His name is Marty Demerit, and you need to call him coach. But here's the deal. We said, he's going to tell you, don't ever call me coach. It's a test. All right. It's a test. You need to continue to call him coach. So this guy, we're right behind him. Walking up, he says, "What's up, coach?" And Dog, like, and he hated it. He looked at me and goes, "Don't ever call me effing coach again." He goes, "You got it, coach." died. Like Marty was so mad. Like we scrambled. This kid is on
I can
an
just see
island.
the cocky high school kid coming out, like signs for a little bit of money. Man,
Oh, it was so much fun.
one
Man.
dog
What a
with the
time.
face with the 200 SPF like caked. Like it's like
Dan McDonald thick?
Valspar primer.
Dan McDonald thick?
Thicker.
Oh yeah.
Thicker with two
He makes-
C's.
Yeah, he makes Dan look like he's on the Baywatch.
Oh man, what a time.
So
What
tell
a
me,
time.
do you remember your walkout song?
I do, be HUD.
What is it? Hit me with it.
Coldplay, Speed of Sound.
Speed of Sound. We thought it was clocks.
Everybody thinks it's clocks. It's not clocks.
Yeah,
Let me tell you this.
Shazam. Beat Shazam.
Look, let me tell you this. I've caught flack because I get asked that a lot in work.
Yeah.
I've caught in so much heat because of that song. Everybody's like, "Oh, that's weak," and I'll be like, "It's 95 weak." Like joking around with them, but I don't even know why I picked that song. I mean, I listened to them at the time and still do some, but I wanted to be a little bit different. And being a pitcher, you have a little more time to like let a song play out, and I just liked it at the time. And if you ask any of the guys who played, like when that thing came on, everybody's like, "It's Friday, baby, let's go."
So last question, and we'll let you go. I would love to do this all night, but for the sake of,
I got time, man. I ain't got anything going on in my house.
Right. For the sake of editing, your best. So we had Basham on, which was great. I know he was your catcher.
Yeah, Bash caught me.
Yeah, for one of your years. And we asked him a lot of questions about like just mound visits and like what was like the funniest moment. But because I know you do some good impressions of Bianco and have probably a lot of really good Bianco stories. But give me like a good like Bianco, whether it be in the dugout or on the mound, like for a visit. Like give me a good Bianco story to finish it off here.
So early on, like I said, I was a little intimidated when I got to campus. And so like I didn't ever challenge him. But like the more I pitched, the more I was willing to like challenge the pitches that he calls and also challenge him when he came out for a mound visit. Like I never, ever, ever wanted to be taken out of the game. And there's even pictures of him doing the mound visit with me, and he tries to bully the pitchers and like when he's trying to light a fire under you and like basically walk up underneath you, and it feels like he's trying to like push you off the back of the mound. He's just like up under, talking like just letting you have it. And there were no masks back then. I mean, just cussing. And
he was like this. Was he like did he do this?
I would didn't do anything, but I remember one time he came out and was trying to like bully me off the top of the mound. I was like, you know what? I'm staying. Like, I'm gonna show this guy. And like I finally got the courage or the nuts to just like kind of push back. And that's really what grew our relationship and our friendship. And we started listening to one another, more. But he one time we were playing against Tennessee. I think I kind of was in relief this time. Like hadn't really figured things out, but I'd thrown this one kid a fastball, like I swear he fouled off straight back, like 10 in a row, it seemed like. I was like, you know what? I trust my changeup. I'm gonna get this dude to swing over the top of it. I hung that thing and he hit it like off the scoreboard. And I get back to the dugout and he just beelines towards me. He's like, "Why did you shake me off?" I was like, "I thought I could get him out with the changeup." He was like, "Well, you didn't." And then like walked off. And his thing is like he calls the pitches and he admits that, but he also gives the pitchers 100% authority to call him off.
Right.
Only thing is you have to come back to the dugout with an argument for why he did it. And that was mine. I thought I could get him out. But
that's great.
There's a lot of stuff that doesn't really come to mind. I remember running one time on the out, running along the warning track. He's standing at home plate. Kline! Like, oh my God. Like worst nightmare when you hear your name called during BP or, you're out there piddling around. He's like, "Run faster. You're never going to get rid of that inner tube around your waist."
What? Man.
Yeah, I was a little pudgy kid.
You really weren't.
I was like super thick.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Kline, man, this has been great. Like I said, I could listen to stories for so long because we genuinely did have a good time, and you guys made, for me being student manager or whatever, you guys made it fun. Just we clowned in the dugout. We had a lot of fun, and
Yeah,
to have friendships that last this long, where we still can have fun and joke.
dude, I love it.
It's
I love it.
great.
Let me tell one more quick thing about a guest
100%.
that I think is coming on soon. We were at Alabama one night, and it was a Thursday night, so you get to you travel, you get there early, and we were out there practicing at the University of Alabama, and Seth Keschel and I were in the outfield just playing light catch. He liked to throw and be like, man, check out my curveball, and he'd like tell you how to throw stuff. You're like, dude, Seth, stop. And I was kind of a jerk back then, and so I was like, telling him what's coming. I like give him the glove. I'm like, fastball. I'm like giving him a heads up, fastball. Well, I tell him I'm throwing a fastball, and I threw the slider, and that thing hit him directly in the shin. I mean, when I tell you it hit him and bounced straight towards me, like I am not lying. So whenever he comes on, do not forget to ask him about Kline throwing the slider off of his shin at Alabama.
100%.
Please do it.
I thought you were gonna tell the story about Matt Tolbert throwing left-handed in the outfield because he felt like he wanted both sides of his body to stay.
Yeah, well, Matt also wore number 1 because it was the lightest number.
and he would do steel stops in the hotel hallway.
Dude, I saw him sprint out of Hume Hall one time on campus, like before I really knew him, blonde hair and all. Oh, he like takes off from still break.
You're like, what was that, bro? We're in a class. It's 6 a.m. What are you doing? What a
treat.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you, man, for the time. I know you got a newborn, so you'll probably be up the rest of the night. But
yeah, you did, no problem, man. I ain't got much going on.
We appreciate it, and
yeah, dude.
And can't say enough about you. Always been a guy that, like I said, I've been a fan of. So we appreciate it. I'm so hungry I could eat a box. We didn't tell that story. So quickly, back in the day, we used to get rib cage, and it's closed now, so we can probably clown on it a little bit. But we would get like free meals from rib cage because it was a baseball team. And so I have to go, like, I'm in charge of going to pick them all up and getting them back, and we get them, and we're handing them out to everybody. And I'm sitting next to Kline on the bus, and he opens it and he looks at it, and it does look like the most bland, like it was literally bun, chicken breast, didn't even look like it was seasoned. It was just the whitest chicken breast you've ever seen, and then bun. And he looks at me and he goes, I'm gonna eat this because I'm so hungry I could eat this box. And he picks up the box and he starts acting like he's gonna eat it. And it's so stupid, but at the time, like, he and I laughed for hours, like we laughed for weeks.
Well,
years.
You can always get my attention because I remember being at the St. Jude a couple years back in Memphis, and you were like up in a suite thing. I was like walking by and I hear, I'm so hungry I could eat a box, and I'm like, "Good, what's up, man?"
Yeah, it's just one of those moments where it's just funny.
Yeah.
Again, like we
stupid, but
all these years later, it's still just because you're sitting there looking at it, going, "God, this has to be the worst meal any SEC team is getting."
Like Vanderbilt's not eating that.
Right.
Like they're getting kale salads.
Right. Exactly. All right, dude. Well, that's
Bill,
it,
what
man.
a treat.
Yeah, we appreciate
Thanks
it.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, guys. And good luck to the podcast, man. I will be a subscriber.
So before
you're gonna have to show me how to do all that. But
I was gonna say, before we get off, if you're listening, watching, be sure you give us a like on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're on Twitter now, dirt_pod. And then we're also on Facebook, facebook.com/dirt_pod. So be sure you go check us out on all the social media channels. We're trying to grow this thing. We've got some great guests coming up. We had a great guest tonight, but as we move on, we'll take it out with a little speed of sound, just as a first for you.
My man.
See you guys.
See ya.